What's up, people? In this video, I bring you something highly anticipated, which is the mechanics of the Toyota Supra and how we get it started. In this video, you will see how we perform all the complete maintenance and how we start this engine after it has been sitting for more than 12 years. A few months ago, I bought a Toyota Supra that had been locked in a garage for over 12 years, and I tell you that if you have a car stored in the garage thinking that being locked away prevents issues, you are very mistaken, as this Supra won't start due to many problems. And having the car sitting for such a long time also affects parts of the engine that suffer, such as stagnant gasoline, dried out engine gaskets, seals, and oil leaks. If you look at this spark plug, which is full of oil, it's because the valve cover gaskets have dried out. And we also had a small water leak due to a metal tube that had corroded from the car being parked for such a long time. So since I needed several spare parts to get the car running, what we did was detail it, and you might have seen this in a video I uploaded a few months ago about the car. And in that video, you all leave comments like, "But the engine, why didn't he start the engine? I wanted to hear how the car sounded, but what's wrong with the engine? I don't know what, I don't know how much." Well, I didn't start the engine because I needed spare parts. So we focused on detailing it, to transform it from that filthy state of being parked to making it shine more. I believe the change was quite noticeable. So after several months of having it parked without even being able to hear how it sounded, I decided to work on the mechanics, as I had some projects to finish first. And well, now that those projects are completed, I was able to dedicate the time that the Toyota Supra needed. To start the car's mechanics, the main thing was to try to start it. So we need to address the issues that were preventing us from doing so. So we need to repair the water leak. For this water leak, what I did was remove the fitting where it was broken. Well, this part here had rusted. So what we need to do is clean it up. And since they don't sell this part anywhere, I tried to look for it online and found nothing. We have to repair this one. To repair it, what I did was clean it up and cut it and make a little notch with a drill. Now, with a screw that is roughly the same diameter as the hose, we are going to make a new tube. Once we have the piece of screw that we are going to use as a tube, we hollow it out from the inside with a drill, and that's it. It doesn't have to be perfect either, since there isn't a large flow of water here, so having a hole for the water to pass through inside is more than enough. As you have seen in the screw part, we have made the notch a bit larger so that the new tube fits. What we are going to do now is weld it and finish it with the disc machine, and now we have the little tube repaired, so we can reassemble it in the car and put the hose on. We need to put a copper washer on this screw so that it fits well back in its place, and that's it, we have it repaired. And now we just need to place the hose in its position and put on a new clamp. Now that we have repaired the water circuit, we can continue with more parts of the car. This is the first time I put the car on the lift, and I was analyzing how much rust it had, and it really didn't have much. A car that is over 30 years old with a little bit of surface rust is completely normal, but it doesn't have any major dents or parts that need replacing or anything rotten, so it's in good shape. The next step to start the car is the fuel, and after 12 years with the same gasoline in the tank, the fuel pump doesn't work because it has become stuck due to dirt. So we have to lower the tank since the fuel pump is submerged. And one problem with this car is that there is no access through the trunk to get to it. The only thing we have is a small access point to release the cables, and that's it. Removing the fuel tank from the Toyota Supra is quite simple. We just need to disconnect the fuel lines that go to the engine and loosen about 2 straps that hold the tank in place. Once we remove these, we can take out the tank, and it's pretty straightforward. One thing to keep in mind is how much gasoline is in the tank, as having a lot of gasoline can add weight, and a single person could get quite a scare when the car is lifted high. Now that the tank is out, we can start with the cleaning, and as you can see, the first thing we do is empty the gasoline and check its color. The metal fuel tank, having stagnant gasoline, is prone to moisture and rust, so we need to do a thorough cleaning of the tank to remove everything that it has. The first thing we are going to do is give the entire tank an exterior cleaning to uncover all the screws that we need to loosen. So we take my degreaser and thoroughly spray the entire tank, and with high pressure water we give the whole exterior a good cleaning. As you can see, we have 3 gauges at the top of the tank and 1 at the fuel pump, another at the sensor that indicates the fuel level, and the last one at the vent. And as you can see, look at the condition of the pump. Being inactive for such a long time, as I mentioned, creates rust, and in the end, the pump gets stuck. So everything needs to be cleaned thoroughly, the pump needs to be replaced, and all of this has to be restored. For the interior part of the tank, we won't complicate things too much, since everything we want to clean and put in or that is floating inside will make it very complicated. So what we are going to do is apply some degreaser to loosen up all the thicker dirt it has, and with pressurized water, we will help remove any dirt that may be inside the tank. What we are going to do is clarify it, take everything out properly, and let it drain so that it stays as clean as possible. As you can see, a lot of rust particles are coming out, and well, just like I took out the pump and it had a small layer of rust, the tank inside is the same. But as I said, cleaning it a little more thoroughly is more than enough. We don't need to use any specific product or anything, as it comes off quite easily. For the rest of the parts of the tank, we do the same. We apply a bit of degreaser and try to remove as much as we can with high pressure water. The part of the fuel pump support, which was in the worst condition as you can see, usually comes off with high pressure water, so we didn't even bother to scrub all these parts here.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away.
With all the parts of the tank clean and dry, we installed a new fuel pump. From here, well, I didn't realize and didn't buy this little filter here when I was looking for the car's parts. So, well, since yours wasn't broken, we're going to reuse it, and it might give me trouble in the future, and I might regret not having bought a new one. But well, since I was in a hurry and had to order it, and it would take several days to arrive, I reinstalled the same one. And with all the parts of the tank assembled, we put it back in the car.
Well then baby, have a taste. All the highs and the lows, no, you'll never be the same. I don't really want to hurt you, but I can't control.
Before trying to start the car, since the spark plugs were in poor condition and had quite a bit of oil from the valve cover gaskets, we are going to change this. This part here is indeed a bit more complicated because to reach the valve covers or the simple spark plugs, several parts need to be disassembled, such as part of the intake and the entire section of the coils that is right above the valve covers. The spark plugs that the car had, besides being quite worn out, weren't even the correct reference. So since I had to buy new ones, I bought the reference that the car should have. Surely when they changed them the last time, they didn't have the correct reference for the car and put in some similar spark plugs. They work, but since we're going to change the spark plugs, it doesn't cost us anything to put in the right ones. To remove the valve covers, we need to take out some screws that are all around, and once we have removed the screws, the cover comes off. And yes, as you can see, the car has two covers. Instead of having one large cover for everything, it has a small cover for each camshaft. I truly believe this is a good thing because I think it's easier to remove it this way than if it were a complete cover for all 6 cylinders. The problem with these gaskets of the valve covers is that they tend to dry out and become hard, and then they flatten, causing oil to leak. They need to be replaced every so often. This is something that even if the car is used, has an expiration date. Changing them is very simple. Remove the gaskets, insert the new ones, and then we just need to put the valve covers back in position, making sure the gasket doesn't slip out, and screw them in. We have the gaskets changed. With the new gaskets for the valve covers and the spark plugs, we just need to reassemble all these parts here, such as the spark plug wire, the coils, and all the components we had to remove from the intake. Also the engine cover and the entire intake section, which, as I mentioned before, goes over the engine, and honestly, it's a hassle that so many parts have to be disassembled just to change the spark plugs. It's Fallout. You got it all on. With this part already assembled, we can almost start testing to see if the car starts. The only thing we need to do is check the levels to ensure that the car has at least oil. Even if it's old oil, I tell you that it's fine to do a startup. Also fill the coolant circuit and most importantly, put in gasoline. And now we just need to put in a charged battery and try to start the car. I'll leave you with this clip that you're going to love. What a... Are you ready?
Vale, ahora cuentas un par de veces. No lo veas, estoy viendo la realidad, no se para. Tira.
It's a marvel, isn't it? Knowing that our car starts, we are going to perform a more in-depth maintenance, such as removing this mop stick we have to hold up the hood and putting the hydraulic system in order. I'm really sorry, but I can't do the car distribution while the mop handle is in the middle of the central area. So let's change the bottle first. The fact that it has hydraulic support in the hood is cool because it's like a slightly upgraded feature, as the hood doesn't need a prop rod anymore. However, the bottles also have an expiration date, and when they break, it can be a bit of a hassle to change them, especially in Japanese cars, since they often have some adapters that are different. In other words, it's not just a matter of taking a regular bottle and putting it in, as they usually have some kind of fitting that isn't universal. For example, at the bottom of the bottle, I had to make a small adjustment with the old bottle, but it's fine. It's not something very complicated. The thorough maintenance of the car involves replacing the timing belt and water pump. When a car has been stationary for a long time, you should also know how long it was before it was parked without having the timing belt replaced, so it is highly recommended to do this. Starting the car like we have done is absolutely fine, but I wouldn't recommend using the car without knowing the condition of these parts here. To perform the timing on this car, we need to remove the water around it in order to also take out the fan. So we start by removing the oil pan to take off the hose that is around the bottom and drain all the coolant. And yes, all these parts here are quite dirty. When we have the car's mechanics, we will clean everything. So don't worry. I will fight until I get it. I'll look back one day from heaven and say, damn, I learned some lessons, and say, damn, I have no questions, I have fun in every second, and the journey was a blessing. Once we have emptied the cooling circuit, to release the surrounding area, we need to loosen 2 connections at the top and the hose that goes to the thermostat. I'll be playing games. Give a fuck. I'm a Team Jason. It's out me that I'm never gonna make it. In addition to the fan that I moved with the engine, it also has 2 small electric fans that are for the air conditioning. So we disconnect the connectors for these. Now that we have the radiator out, as you can see, we have gained quite a bit of space, and we can now reach all parts of the auxiliary belts and the timing system. As you can see, this car has 3 auxiliary belts, but don't be afraid. It's quite simple to disassemble this part here. The first thing we are going to do is loosen the fan. To do this, we will remove some nuts located at the back. This is quite simple. It's a bit of a hassle to get your hands in here to remove the nut, but it comes off fairly easily. When we remove the nuts, we can take out the complete fan. Now we need to start loosening the belts. For example, the belt that goes to the fan and the alternator is loosened at the alternator. We need to loosen a couple of screws that are applying tension, and the belt will stop being tight, allowing us to remove it. The belt that goes from the engine to the air conditioning compressor has a tensioner in the center. What we need to do is loosen the 2 screws, and the belt will stop being tight, allowing us to remove it. And then we will have the belt that goes to the steering pump. Just like we did with the alternator, we loosen the steering pump and it will allow us to remove the belt. The truth is that it's all a lie. You'll find it in time, but when things don't. On the same pulley where the fan is located is the water pump, so since we are going to change this one, we will remove it as well. So we have to loosen all the screws around it and take out the pump. I don't want to be a part of it. Can I just get some space? Since the pump has a paper gasket that often sticks, we give it a few taps with a hammer to loosen it, and then we can remove it from the car. I want to drive away so I can be so fun. To reach the distribution, we need to keep removing things, so we have to take out the tensioner for the belt that goes to the air conditioning compressor. Since it is bolted where the timing covers are, we need to remove these covers, so we also have to take that part off as well. Now we have to disassemble a part that has become a bit complicated for me, which is the pulley that goes to the crankshaft, and I just couldn't remove it with the pneumatic gun. So I had to ask a colleague from the workshop across the street to lend me a tool he has that is meant to deliver a blow with a hammer and really loosen it with impact, with arm impact. To finish removing the pulley, we need to use a puller. What we do with the puller is grip the pulley by the edges and use the center screw as a support. We then tighten the puller, which pulls outward on the pulley, allowing us to remove it. Since they tend to get stuck a lot, hitting them or trying to pry them off can lead to breaking the pulley or bending part of the crankshaft. So it's better to use the puller. In the next part, we can already remove the timing covers, and here I realized that the thermostat cover was also in the way, so we need to remove the thermostat. But since it was something we were going to change anyway, I didn't mind taking it off now rather than later, so since it is in the way for the cover, we'll remove it now. And now we can remove the main cover of the timing system. And while we're at it, let's also take out the thermostat, which as you can see, the thermostat was already due for retirement many years ago. It's in terrible condition. We continue removing the lower part of the timing cover, which is not made of plastic, it is made of aluminum. And here we have a small problem, as some engineer at Toyota had the brilliant idea of placing the support for the air conditioning compressor above the cover. So, in order to remove the lower cover of the timing system, we also need to loosen the air conditioning compressor. In order to remove the bracket that holds the timing cover, we first need to take off the air conditioning compressor from that bracket, because there are 2 screws at the back that I couldn't access with the compressor in place, as there wasn't enough space to fit the wrench. The compressor is held by 4 screws that are quite long, and it's a hassle to remove them because they are also in a very awkward position. Once we loosen the compressor, we can reach those screws on the bracket and remove the bracket. However, having to disassemble this allowed me to see that I had a fault in the air conditioning circuit, as one of the pipes going from the compressor was loose. So if I didn't have to disassemble this part to remove the timing, I wouldn't have noticed the tube, and then I would be wondering why my air conditioning wasn't working and having to look for where the fault was coming from. Since we don't have gas in the circuit, what we do is remove the air conditioning compressor completely. Instead of moving it a little to the side, we remove it completely from the middle, and it's easier to take out the support. Once we have removed the air conditioning compressor, we can take out the support without any difficulty, and we can now remove the missing cover from the timing. Before starting to disassemble the old timing system, we will clean this area here with brake cleaner, as it had quite a bit of oil and dirt residue. So we clean it before starting to disassemble anything. With this part clean, the first thing we need to do before starting to disassemble anything is to turn the engine to position the camshafts and the crankshaft in their place. This engine has marks, so we don't need to make any kind of mark. All we have to do is turn the engine until everything is aligned in its place. To release the timing belt, we need to loosen the tensioner. The tensioner has a screw in the center that holds the pulley in place and a spring, which is what tightens the belt. Once we loosen the tensioner, we can remove the spring, and as you can see, the tensioner has been released, and now the belt is loose and we can take it out. Since we need to replace the tensioner with a new one, we remove it completely. To start assembling the new timing system, we have to do exactly the same thing, but in reverse. Therefore, since the last part we removed was the tensioner, the first new part we install is the tensioner. Before mounting the new belt, we check with the old one to ensure it matches, has the same number of teeth, and dimensions match. From here, to get it in, you need to have a little patience since you have to gradually insert it from all sides until it fits. Once the belt is in place, we put the spring on the tensioner, and yes, here the elbow is the star of the scene, as I didn't realize I was putting my arm in the way. Once we have the spring in its place, we can tighten the central screw of the pulley, of the tension roller. In principle, the timing would be 100% completed, and the only thing we need to do is a check, which is to turn the engine at least 2 full revolutions and verify that the marks are still aligned, each in its place, and that none have deviated. Since due to the tension of the belt or having misaligned a tooth when we make 1 or 2 turns, it may vary, but if the marks remain in their place, the belt will have it. Taking advantage of the fact that these covers are disassembled, what we are going to do before mounting them is to remove all the grease they have, as they are quite dirty. So we put them in a container, add a bit of degreaser, and with a small brush, a paint brush, or something similar, we scrub all that dirt off and leave them clean. Then we mount them back clean in the engine. And now, at this point, we can put back together everything. As you might recall, we disassembled the water pump earlier, but we didn't install the new one, so we are installing it now. To install the new water pump, we thoroughly clean the area of the engine block so that the new gasket seals properly and there are no leaks. Then, we insert the paper gasket that comes with the new pump and proceed to place the pump. We will tighten the screws in a cross pattern so that the gasket settles evenly all around and does not deform, and then we will have the water pump mounted. To install the new thermostat, we need to thoroughly clean this entire area here. So we take the drill and the wire brush and clean the whole zone well so that the thermostat gasket fits properly and there are no leaks here. The only thing we have to do afterwards is install the new thermostat, put the cover in place, tighten the screws, and that's it. We also need to insert the crankshaft pulley. We place it and gently tap it into position. Then we install the screw. And now we can tighten the central screw with the pneumatic gun. Now we need to mount the compressor, and the first thing we are going to install is the bracket. Now we need to fix the part of the air conditioning tube that had come loose. I went to a hydraulic shop where they make this type of hose, and they directly installed a new tube for me. So we replaced the entire tube with 2 new fittings, ensuring that this won't leak again for many years. This tube went from the compressor to the radiator, so we first attached it at the radiator end, and then inserted the compressor and bolted it at the compressor end. And then we would just need to charge the air conditioning gas, which I will do when the car has passed the ITV and is on the road. I will take it to a specific air conditioning workshop to have everything checked. Then we can continue installing the rest of the auxiliary belts. By the way, I haven't changed these belts because they are practically new. They have no cracks or anything, so they are well preserved. So I haven't bothered to change them. Moreover, since they are easily accessible, if I need to change any in the future, I will. But I tell you that they are perfect, meaning they will last a ton of years without any problem. Before mounting the water radiator, we are going to give it a cleaning. We will remove all the dirt it has, which, as you can see, from driving the car and all that, it had a lot of debris, dirt and all that, and it even had a bit of rust. When I sprayed it with water, some rusty water came out, and I imagine, well, this car has already had a head gasket done once. I imagine it must have leaked from somewhere and that rusty water ended up in the radiator, and when I sprayed it with high pressure water, it would come out. I have also cleaned it a bit on the inside to remove all the dirt it had, and that's it. Once we have the radiator clean, we mount it back in the car, connect the hoses both from the top and the bottom, and then we just need to add the antifreeze, start it up, and check that everything is working well, that the car runs smoothly, that the timing is fine, and that the water pump is working and the circuit is functioning properly. Now that we have had the car running for a while and the oil has warmed up, we are going to change it and also change the filter. I think you know how to change the oil, right? We drain the oil and let it drain for a good while, ensuring that it all drains well. And we also remove the filter. The filter was a bit of a pain, and well, I didn't record it, but we had to take it out by hitting it and breaking it because there was no way to get the wrench in there. In the end, brute force came in handy again to change a part of the car. To install the new filter, we tighten it firmly by hand as much as we can, applying a little oil to the gasket, and then we tighten the screws again and pour the oil in from the top. To add the oil, we bring it to the level and start the car for about 20 to 30 seconds to fill the entire oil circuit, and then we check the level again, and that would complete the oil change. Now that we have the car's mechanics at 100%, we are going to clean this lower gasket and also the top part of the engine, which, as you can see, well, it has had some oil leaks and has stained all of this a lot. To clean it, we are going to use pressurized water and XAO degreasers as we always do. So what we need to do is spray the entire top part of the engine. Apply the degreaser to the greasy parts using a soft cloth or a brush specifically designed for automotive cleaning. Make sure to cover all the greasy areas thoroughly and let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes. This waiting period is crucial as it allows the degreaser to penetrate and break down the stubborn grease and grime effectively. After the degreaser has had time to work, rinse the area with pressurized water. It is recommended to use a pressure level of around 1500 to 2000 psi to ensure all the loosened dirt is washed away. Since these areas have a lot of oil dirt, a thick layer forms due to the accumulation of grease over time, and it is really difficult to clean. Therefore, in areas where it is harder to remove, we repeat the process a couple of times until it is as clean as possible. Repeating the process ensures that even the most stubborn grease is completely removed, leaving the surface spotless. For the car's lower parts that have superficial rust, we take the rust converter in a spray bottle and spray that area a little to at least remove the unsightly rust and help protect it a bit. The rust converter contains chemicals that react with the rust, converting it into a stable compound that is less likely to spread. Removing superficial rust is important as it not only improves the appearance of the car, but also helps in protecting the metal from further corrosion, thereby extending the life of the vehicle. Now that we have completely finished the underside of the car, we move the car to the washing area to clean the top of the engine. To clean the top part of the engine, we do it exactly the same way as the lower parts, but with a bit more care since there are more delicate areas in this part. The first thing we do is disconnect the battery to avoid any short circuits, any car sensors, or anything unusual, and we spray all the parts of the engine that we are going to clean with the degreaser. In this case, for an engine that has never been cleaned, we spray it completely. In the lower part of the car, when we use the pressure washer, I used a nozzle that has a fine jet, which is quite powerful, but that nozzle has a lot of pressure and can break some parts of the engine from the top. So here we use the fan nozzle, which is much gentler, and this way we don't damage anything up here. To give a deeper clean to the metal parts of the engine, we will use body shampoo wax and put it in the foam lance. We will apply this shampoo with the lance to the entire engine, but in the areas of the bodywork that are painted the color of the chassis, we will use a brush a little. Since these areas are here with the engine gases and all that, they get a little darker, and without scrubbing, it can be a bit difficult to clean them. In addition, it's super old paint that has many years, and well, it needs a bit more care to clean it more thoroughly. Just wish I had seen. I feel this pain. You already know. We also give a little cleaning to the entire underside of the hood, and to finish cleaning the engine, we dry all the parts we can with pressurized air and remove any water that may be left stagnant. And finally, to top it all off and leave the car 100% ready to insure and take it to the ITV, we gave it a wash on the outside, since it had been quite a while since it was cleaned at the workshop and it had some dust on it. So, we gave it a quick wash with shampoo, bodywork, wax, the same lance, a rinse, dried it off, and it was all set.
Lío.